Last week I got the opportunity on Hogmanay to speak to the parish family here about something that I think we're all experiencing, and that's the terrible distress of watching the scenes that are coming from Gaza. So it seemed appropriate to speak on the Feast of the Holy Family about all those wee families who are being beleaguered and destroyed in the very place where Jesus was born. So now I've got the great opportunity to speak to the Skia family, and what a privilege that is to speak to all of you who I know share the same concerns. I'm Father Jim Lawlor. I'm the parish priest here at the Immaculate Conception in Maryhill. Years ago, I was taught by a Jewish lady who had fled from Vienna and who had been a victim of the Nazi regime and had fled the Holocaust. She really knew what it was to suffer. And because of the influence of Magda, this lovely lady gave to me such a respect for the Jewish faith and the Jewish people, but also gave me a real sense of the horror that the Jewish people had lived through. And it's so important to keep that memory alive so that it never ever happens again. As well as learning from Magda about the Holocaust, I also got the chance to visit Auschwitz. Many of you will have been there too. And also to visit Majdanek. Majdanek is the national Polish monument to the Holocaust, and carved on the huge big crematorium memorial is a Polish phrase that says simply, "Let what happened to us be a warning to the world." And my goodness me, a few days into a new year, and it feels like we've never learned from the past. Even as we speak, even as we watch the TV or read the media, all we see is that we have not learned from the past, and in fact we seem condemned to repeat it. Often chatting to Magda about her experience, I used to find myself wondering, had I lived during that Nazi regime, would I have had the courage to stand up and be counted? Would I have had the moral strength to say, "Not in my name," to stand up against this horror? And that very call is present in me today, and I suspect in you too, when we look at what's happening in the world all around us. There were people who stood up, people like Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Alfred Delf, a Jesuit priest, and then Martin Niemöller, who wrote that beautiful poem that ends with such a chilling line. They came for the Jews, and I was not a Jew, so I did not speak up. And then they came for me, and there was nobody left to speak for me. Niemöller reminds all of us that it's not enough to just be upset or annoyed when we see what's happening. We need to stand up, we need to speak up. It's a moral imperative. It's even a legal imperative, because it's a principle in law that the person who keeps silent is actually giving consent or assent. So speaking up, not in my name, means at the very least that's what's happening in the world at the moment, what's happening in Gaza, is unacceptable. Now, I need to confess that I find it really difficult to understand all the intricacies and all the difficulties, all the historical baggage, all the cultural differences that make the tension in the Holy Land so incredibly complicated. We all know that Hamas must be brought to justice for their terrible atrocities, but so too must Netanyahu and the Israeli government. All I can think of, like you, are the images of those wee families, of children dying, people hurt and maimed and wounded, and people displaced. 1.9 million people pushed south. Jesus was born in that land, and he came as a refugee, came as a fragile, tiny baby, and he too was pushed aside. I suspect that Jesus is much closer to those people than he is to those who are self-righteous. There's a beautiful column being published in one of the national newspapers. Zaid, a young Palestinian man, is reporting every day what it's like. And that column has made such an impact on me. On Boxing Day, he records what Christmas Day was like this year. In your country, there is Christmas. People are sharing food and presents, hugging each other because they love each other. And then he goes on, it's 9 p.m. here on Christmas Day. We are hugging because we are terrified and we are cold. We have no gifts to share except our prayer that this horror will cease. So let me ask you very directly, all the members of the Skiaf family and beyond, support Skiaf's campaign to end this horror. Sign the petition, sign it now. Tell your family, tell your friends, all those who share your worry about what's happening there, and let's use Skiaf to make our voices heard, that the people of Gaza will know peace this year and know it swiftly.